Babe, look. A mustache.
Babe, you're not 10 years old. Can you stop? That is so cringy.
My fault.
This food is good, huh, babe?
It's alright.
How was your day?
Good.
Babe, look, it's the root of a tree. Babe! Oh my god! Look! Babe, do you not care?
Yeah, dude. I just said it was cool.
Look!
Nice.
Babe, look, this one's perfect!
Show.
Babe, where are you going? Babe, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just enjoying the view.
Why aren't you talking to me?
What do you mean? I'll just be chilling.
Nonchalance is a curious phenomenon that weaves itself into the fabric of everyday life, often imperceptibly at first, then settling into the corners of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It is the subtle shrug of a shoulder in the face of adversity, the gentle disavowal of passions and pursuits once held dear, and the careful cultivation of an air of detachment to ward off deeper vulnerability. It arises from many sources, including personal history, cultural conditioning, and the innate desire to protect oneself from pain. To become nonchalant is not merely to give up on caring. It can also be an unspoken plea for peace amid chaos, a protective stance that shields the heart from disappointment, and a coping mechanism to manage the overwhelm of modern life. Yet, underneath the surface, a person who has grown nonchalant often yearns to reconnect with the intensity of genuine feeling, seeking a way to navigate life without sacrificing emotional freedom. This is, at its core, the paradox of nonchalance. It seeks to minimize suffering while inadvertently reducing the potential for profound joy. Understanding how this attitude forms and flourishes can shed light on the hidden processes that guide our emotional responses. By unraveling the tapestry of subtle disregard, one can discover that overcoming nonchalance involves not merely discarding one's armor, but learning to use it more wisely, accepting vulnerability as part of a balanced self. There is a fundamental difference between a healthy sense of calm and the resigned apathy that strips life of color. The seed of nonchalance, in many instances, is sown during the early years of a person's life. For some, it begins with subtle lessons about self-expression. A child who faces frequent belittlement or criticism when displaying intense emotion might learn, over time, to dampen the outward signs of enthusiasm or hurt. Enthusiasm once brimming might suddenly be met with the dismissive wave of an adult's hand, or tears may lead to an abrupt admonition to grow up or stop crying. These tiny interactions accumulate like droplets in a reservoir. Teaching the child that emotional intensity yields undesirable outcomes. Consequently, as they step into adolescence and beyond, their natural emotional expression may feel too raw and unprotected. Nonchalance becomes an intuitive solution, a way to sidestep perceived danger or rejection. This unspoken training molds them to avoid extremes in sadness or joy, as if the emotional midground is somehow safer. The transformation is rarely conscious. Rather, it manifests as a slow turning down of the volume knob on life's emotional soundtrack until even the high notes are softly muted. Traumatic events can also serve as a catalyst, propelling a person from heartfelt engagement into a state of practiced detachment. Betrayal by a trusted friend, a devastating personal failure, or the shock of witnessing cruelty and violence can initiate a recalibration of emotional boundaries. The psyche, seeking to defend itself, may decide that feeling too strongly is an invitation for harm. Nonchalance emerges as a shield, turning away slights and heartbreak with an impenetrable cool. In the short term, this strategy can be effective. The sting of disappointment lessens when hope as expectation are tempered by doubt or dismissed altogether. Yet, as this becomes a long-term habit, the individual risks excluding genuine connection as well. They might learn to prefer a universe of moderate greys to a world awash in colours, because bright hues can be unpredictable and sometimes painful. This is how nonchalance becomes woven into daily existence. It feels practical, like a protective cloak that cannot be easily cast aside. Cultural environment can also push a person toward nonchalance. In settings that glorify stoicism or advocate that emotions are a weakness, individuals may adopt an outwardly indifferent posture to blend in or to earn respect. Peer groups in which vulnerability is mocked or dismissed create powerful incentives for members to craft a persona of carelessness. This process is often amplified by media portrayals of certain archetypes. The hardened anti-hero who never flinches, the unattainable love interest who shrugs off genuine displays of affection, the powerful executive who remains perpetually composed. Viewers or participants can unconsciously model themselves after these figures, believing that outward detachment denotes strength. Over time, this socially reinforced behavior grows roots. It becomes second nature to respond with non-committal answers, to approach relationships with an air of indifference, and to remain guarded behind a calm facade, even when inwardly roiling with emotion. The individual might not even be fully aware of this dynamic, simply experiencing it as the right or comfortable way to behave in a society that rewards restraint and punishes vulnerability. There is also the simple inertia of habit. Once a person settles into patterns of nonchalance, changing them can feel like an insurmountable challenge. They might no longer remember when or why the behavior began. They only know that, confronted with potential conflict or intensity, they default to mild disengagement. A carefully constructed personality that centers on being unbothered can be difficult to dismantle because it has likely become part of their identity. It is not uncommon for friends, acquaintances, or loved ones to refer to them as laid back, easygoing, or hard to read. These characterizations can reinforce the sense that nonchalance is part of their essence, leading to a complacency that resists self-examination. Yet beneath the surface, the current of life still flows with all its usual force. The outward appearance of calm may mask deep longing, unresolved pain, or a desire for a more passionate engagement with the world. In that sense, nonchalance is like a polished veneer over a dynamic interior, a protective shell that may eventually need to crack in order for growth to occur. People who have slipped into nonchalance often discover over time that it can lead to stagnation and a dull sense of disconnection, At first, the absence of sharp emotional swings may feel soothing. There is a certain relief in not riding the roller coaster of heartbreak and exhilaration. However, this relief might gradually morph into an unsettling numbness. Life experiences that once generated intense excitement, such as pursuing a new hobby or entering a new relationship, might now barely shift the needle on the emotional gauge. The voice in their head might say, "Why bother? It won't matter anyway." They may find themselves drifting through friendships or workplaces without forming deep bonds, content on the surface, but haunted by an indistinct sensation of emptiness. Paradoxically, the protective measure that was supposed to prevent pain might turn into a barrier against experiences that foster growth, love, and self-discovery. In these instances, nonchalance has become a double-edged sword, simultaneously guarding against acute hurt, but also dulling the possibility of life-affirming joys. In relationships, whether romantic or platonic, a nonchalant stance can manifest as reluctance to invest wholeheartedly. The individual might appear pleasant, superficially agreeable, or even kind, but there is a persistent reluctance to truly open up. Perhaps they have learned that opening their heart leads to betrayal or heartbreak, so they maintain a quiet distance. They might avoid conflict by shrugging off disagreements, or dodge profound conversations with a quick change of subject. Over time, their partner or friend may sense this lingering detachment and question whether the bond has real depth. Communication can suffer, since one side is always guessing what the other feels or thinks. This pattern, left unchecked, may result in relationships that never reach their potential. The nonchalant person, in trying not to be hurt, inadvertently deprives themselves of the nourishment that genuine closeness provides. Although it might seem paradoxical, the more they avoid risking pain, the more they deprive themselves of meaningful connections. Nonchalance can also seep into professional life, sometimes presenting as a lack of ambition or a half-hearted engagement with goals. The desire to avoid disappointment can lead to setting the bar low. Rather than risking failure, the person might consciously or subconsciously hold back effort, thus securing a sort of protective cushion against the sting of defeat. They may accomplish enough to remain stable, but seldom push beyond. They can survive at this baseline for years, rarely recognized as incompetent, but never truly maximizing their potential. Under the surface, there may be sparks of brilliance or creativity that never see the light of day, because it is safer to remain on an even keel. Supervisors and colleagues might label them as competent but unenthusiastic, never aware of the internal struggle that prevents them from fully committing. This pattern can cause long-term dissatisfaction, leading to a sense that their talents are underutilized or their passions unfulfilled. Ambition, after all, carries inherent risk, and for someone who has grown comfortable in nonchalance, risk is often an unwelcome visitor. Sometimes nonchalance emerges as a symbolic stance against the frantic pace and high-pressure demands of modern society. There are those who adopt a cool distance as a rebellion against the ceaseless calls to achieve, produce, and consume. They may find solace in rejecting the notion that one must chase every opportunity or be constantly on. In this sense, nonchalance can carry a bohemian flair, a sign of rejecting mainstream ideals that place external success above inner peace. While this stance can be empowering for some, It may devolve into a form of learned helplessness if it crosses a threshold. When the individual relinquishes agency altogether, they move beyond healthy detachment into the territory of emotional lethargy. They no longer calmly choose which battles to fight, they simply forego all battles. The original purpose of asserting independence from societal pressures morphs into a stagnant acceptance that denies the person's deeper needs. This subtle distinction often arises slowly, as day by day their impetus to act wanes, replaced by the comfort of indifferent observation. An additional layer of complexity emerges when one considers the influence of technology and social media. In digital spaces, where daily life unfolds in curated snapshots, the performance of nonchalance can be magnified. Some adopt a blasé online persona, posting only the most effortlessly cool or ironically detached updates. Expressions of genuine emotion can feel out of place in environments where wit and composure attract more validation. Over time, this digital performance can begin to define one's offline identity as well. It becomes tempting to internalize the facade, consistently playing the part of someone who is above it all. The cycle continues as social approval rewards the performance, and the individual invests more deeply in that image. The result is a stifling of authentic feeling, replaced by a carefully modulated persona that signals minimal effort, minimal care, and minimal exposure to potential judgment or rejection. Yet, despite all these factors, there remains a very human desire for intimacy and meaning. Beneath the calm exterior, the nonchalant person often harbors a longing for intensity, for living with a sense of purpose. That longing can manifest in fleeting moments when they witness genuine passion in someone else and feel an inexplicable pang of envy or regret. It may surface in the quiet hours when regrets swirl, memories of chances not taken, friendships that could have grown deeper, or creative ideas that never came to fruition. These pangs can spark a realization that the state of nonchalance has become more confining than liberating. The person may then embark on a process of self-exploration, seeking to unravel how and why they have cultivated this stance, and whether there is a more balanced approach that allows them to engage with life without being overwhelmed. The ensuing journey can be transformative, especially when guided by insight, reflection, and a willingness to engage with the roots of their detachment. One way to begin dismantling nonchalance is to identify the specific fears that underpin it. Individuals may fear rejection, humiliation, betrayal, or failure. By naming these fears, they can begin to observe how these anxieties have shaped their behaviors. It might become clear that the pursuit of a neutral zone, one where emotions are neither too low nor too high, was an unconscious strategy to avert hurt. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward changing it. Once a person acknowledges that the cost of nonchalance is a dulled experience of life, they can decide whether continuing to pay that price is worthwhile. They may determine that the risk of feeling pain is offset by the richer tapestry of experience they could gain by living with greater vulnerability and authenticity. Another avenue toward overcoming nonchalance lies in practicing mindfulness of emotions. After years of tamping down strong feelings, a person may struggle to identify or articulate them. They might default to saying, "I don't really care," even when a situation genuinely affects them. Building emotional intelligence can be akin to learning a new language. It involves pausing when emotions arise, naming them without judgment, and allowing them to unfold naturally. For someone unaccustomed to this, it can be uncomfortable at first. They may feel exposed or uncertain about how to handle the intensity of sadness, frustration, or even excitement. Through repeated practice, however, they learn that feelings come in waves, surging, cresting, and receding. Riding these waves without running from them can restore the natural rhythm of emotional life, making it less terrifying to inhabit states of genuine feeling. Relationships play a vital role in this transformation. Sharing the desire to move away from nonchalance with trusted friends or a partner can open pathways for deeper connection. They can offer support and understanding, while also providing gentle accountability. An empathetic listener can reflect back the times when the person appears withdrawn or detached, helping them to notice patterns they might otherwise miss. While this process is not always comfortable, it can forge stronger bonds. When someone who has grown accustomed to nonchalance takes the leap of vulnerability, admitting a fear, showing enthusiasm for something dear to them, or revealing a hidden disappointment, they often discover that others receive them warmly. These encouraging experiences can reinforce their commitment to emerging from the shell of indifference. Journaling can also serve as an illuminating tool in overcoming nonchalance. Putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard allows thoughts and emotions to be processed at a slower pace. It offers a private space to reflect on daily experiences, pinpoint instances where detachment felt automatic, and consider alternative ways to respond. Over time, journaling can reveal recurring themes, moments when shame or fear drove the impulse to appear unruffled, patterns of reactivity hidden beneath the seemingly calm surface, or yearnings that are never spoken aloud. By transforming these intangible feelings into written words, one can begin to see them in a clearer light, demystifying the hold they have on the psyche. Therapy or counseling can be a powerful tool for individuals who find it challenging to break free from long-standing patterns of nonchalance on their own. A therapist trained in depth psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, or trauma-informed approaches can help piece together the historical causes of detachment. They may guide the individual toward a more nuanced understanding of how specific incidents or relationships shaped their current emotional stance through structured exercises, role-playing, or guided introspection. Therapy can provide a safe environment to experiment with new ways of relating to the self and others. It can also be a healing experience to have someone actively listen without judgment, affirming that it is both safe and valuable to explore the full range of emotional expression. As a person begins to re-engage with their emotions, they might discover an inner reservoir of creativity or passion they had long neglected. The impulse to create, whether through art, music, writing, or any other form, can be a vibrant channel for reconnecting with feeling. In creative expression, one can temporarily bypass the intellect's defenses and tap directly into what lies beneath the surface. Colors, shapes, sounds, and words can serve as vessels for emotions that are still tentative or emerging from hiding. This process can be both cathartic and revelatory, offering glimpses of a new sense of identity that is not dictated by avoidance of pain, but enriched by the full spectrum of existence. In addition to self-exploration, forging meaningful connections with others can further whittle away at nonchalance. Volunteering in the community, joining shared interest groups, or participating in group therapy sessions can all provide platforms for interpersonal growth. By engaging with the needs and struggles of others, one can step outside the habitual preoccupation with self-protection. Acts of service, no matter how modest, can awaken compassion and purpose. In witnessing the vulnerabilities of others, the nonchalant person may feel emboldened to share more of themselves as well. Slowly, the walls that once felt so protective can begin to crumble, revealing a heart capable of empathy and genuine involvement. Another dimension to consider is the role of spiritual or philosophical inquiry in addressing nonchalance. Individuals who grapple with a sense of existential ennui, convinced that life has no deeper meaning, may find themselves leaning into an attitude of indifference. Exploring spiritual traditions, meditative practices, or philosophical texts can spark a renewed sense of wonder and curiosity about human existence. By asking fundamental questions such as, "Why am I here?" and "What truly matters to me?" a person can unearth motivations that transcend short-term impulses or surface-level anxieties. Engaging with these bigger questions can illuminate the path toward a more wholehearted way of living, one that embraces the mystery of being alive rather than tuning it out. However, it is crucial not to equate the process of overcoming nonchalance with becoming perpetually emotional or hyper-reactive. Healthy detachment is useful, even necessary in many situations. Emotional regulation helps in decision-making, fosters resilience, and prevents unnecessary conflicts. The difference lies in whether one's detachment is a conscious, balanced choice or a default, fear-driven mode that stifles growth. Striking this balance involves learning when to step back to gain perspective and when to lean in and let oneself be fully present. There is a strong parallel here to the concept of emotional intelligence, which includes self-awareness, empathy, and the ability to handle social relationships judiciously and empathetically. A person who masters this can appear calm without being distant, self-assured without being dismissive, and confident without being unreachable. Over time, as the grip of nonchalance loosens, a renewed sense of possibility emerges. Life regains its vibrancy, and even simple pleasures, like watching a sunset or savoring a meal, can evoke wonder or gratitude. The capacity to form deep connections increases as well. Romantic relationships, friendships, and familial bonds can flourish under the light of authenticity. Challenges and setbacks, while still painful, no longer feel like cataclysmic threats to one's sense of self. Instead, they become opportunities to learn, to evolve, and to practice resilience. The individual who once felt compelled to remain above it all can now experience a measured willingness to be present, even when that involves a certain degree of vulnerability. There is no magic switch that instantly transforms a nonchalant individual into one who embraces life passionately. The metamorphosis is gradual, with steps forward and occasional slides backward. Some days the old reflex of detachment will reassert itself with surprising force. In those moments, self-compassion is vital. Berating oneself for not caring enough can create additional pressure and shame, which may reinforce the inclination to retreat into indifference. Instead, acknowledging the slip without judgment, recognizing that transformation takes time, can prevent the spiral of self-blame. Each experience of emotional engagement becomes an opportunity to strengthen new neural pathways, steadily building an alternative to the ingrained habit of cool detachment. A vital component of this ongoing process is a willingness to face difficult emotions directly. Sadness, anger, and fear are typically the feelings that most motivate us to shut down. If these emotions are met repeatedly with avoidance, they can accumulate into a heavy load of unresolved issues. Embracing them does not mean wallowing in misery. It means allowing them to exist without rushing to escape. This can be done by sitting quietly and welcoming whatever feelings arise, perhaps labeling them. This is sadness, this is anger, this is anxiety, before letting them pass like clouds across the sky. It can also help to practice self-dialogue or guided meditation aimed at soothing and validating these emotions. Though initially counterintuitive, feeling deeply can be a path to genuine emotional freedom. In discovering methods to move beyond nonchalance, it can be helpful to study examples of individuals who exemplify healthy engagement with life. Cultural heroes, mentors, artists, or activists who demonstrate both passion and resilience can serve as inspirations. Observing how they handle setbacks and continue to invest themselves wholeheartedly can loosen the grip of cynicism or resignation. Their stories can remind us that caring deeply is not only a risk of pain, but also a gateway to accomplishment, fulfillment, and occasionally even transcendence. In this way, outward role models encourage inward transformation. The underlying message is that one can be strong and vulnerable at the same time, that the two qualities are not opposites but complementary facets of a balanced human being. Moreover, exploring the nature of curiosity can be a surprisingly powerful antidote to nonchalance. When curiosity about the world, about people, or about oneself is ignited, it naturally counters indifference. Asking questions, seeking knowledge, or simply experiencing the beauty of the ordinary with a fresh perspective can open the heart to wonder. A nonchalant mindset often depends on a certain closedness, a belief that one already knows or that nothing new is worth the emotional expenditure. Curiosity subverts that assumption, revealing infinite possibilities to explore, learn, and connect. Whether through books, travel, new hobbies, or educational pursuits, curiosity can light a spark that was long dormant, reminding a person that there is more to life than what they allowed themselves to see. At the same time, discovering purpose can solidify one's resolve to leave nonchalance behind. Purpose transcends momentary goals or pleasures. It connects an individual to something larger, be it a cause, an art form, a community, or a personal legacy. When fueled by purpose, the notion of not caring becomes counterintuitive. The pursuit of meaningful objectives naturally calls forth energy, motivation, and heart. This does not mean that every day will be filled with rapture, but rather that there is a guiding star that keeps one oriented toward active engagement instead of passive withdrawal. Purpose can also help absorb the shocks of failure or disappointment, making it easier to persevere rather than revert to detachment. Overcoming nonchalance thus becomes a holistic endeavor, touching upon self-awareness, relationships, curiosity, creativity, and purpose. It is a deliberate practice of unlearning old patterns and adopting new ones, each choice an act of courage. The world might continue to be unpredictable and sometimes harsh, yet the choice to remain open becomes a statement of hope. It says, "I refuse to let past hurts or fears define the extent of my emotional range." This defiance is both liberating and constructive, as it opens the door to a life richer in connection and self-expression. It acknowledges that while pain is inevitable, it is also a teacher, and that joy, love, and meaning are often the rewards for risking vulnerability. In the midst of all these considerations, one might wonder if complete immunity to life's troubles is ever truly desirable. After all, to be human is to feel, whether that means delight in the wonders of nature, empathy for a friend in need, or sorrow at the loss of a cherished relationship. Nonchalance attempts to preserve a constant state of equilibrium, yet it may ultimately sacrifice the very heartbeat of existence. Life is not a static journey, it is an ever-evolving dance of passion, learning, connection, loss, and renewal. By seeking to remain too calm, one risks missing the transcendence inherent in these experiences. In the final analysis, it is often the interplay of highs and lows that imbues our stories with depth and significance. Learning to skillfully navigate emotional weather is perhaps a wiser aspiration than attempting to extinguish it altogether. The storms of heartbreak, frustration, and disappointment inevitably pass, leaving behind lessons that pave the way for deeper compassion and insight. Similarly, moments of elation and triumph shine more brightly when contrasted with the shadows that preceded them. In embracing this cyclical nature of emotional life, one can find a degree of peace that is far richer than the shallow calm of nonchalance. It is a peace born of acceptance, resilience, and the capacity to adapt without giving up the capacity to care. Still, the process is rarely linear. Doubts may arise, tempting the individual to slip back into the familiar cocoon of indifference. The mind may whisper that caring is too much work, that it leads to disappointment, or that others will not reciprocate. A certain caution is natural, especially for those who carry deep emotional scars. But rather than viewing each setback as proof that it is better not to care, the evolving self can view them as stepping stones on a winding path of growth. They can remind themselves that vulnerability is not recklessness, that authenticity does not equate to oversharing, and that investing emotionally is an art that requires practice and discernment. As the journey continues, one might discover unexpected benefits. Physical health can improve once stress and repressed feelings are no longer silently building up behind a wall of detachment. The ability to communicate openly can strengthen personal and professional relationships, increasing the sense of belonging and community. Self-esteem might also rise, as nonchalance often coexists with an underlying sense of powerlessness, whereas active engagement fosters a feeling of personal efficacy. Life choices become clearer when grounded in real desires and feelings, rather than a blanket statement of, "I don't care." All these changes can happen subtly at first, but cumulatively they create a significant shift in identity. The individual starts to see themselves as someone who participates fully in life, who dares to feel and to connect. Eventually, the narrative of self can transition from a story of retreat and defense to one of exploration and growth. The chapters devoted to nonchalance are not wasted. They are instructive, illustrating how the human mind copes with overwhelm and pain. Yet they are not the final chapters. They set the stage for the awakening of a more engaged approach to living. If the old self was defined by distance and neutrality, the emerging self can be defined by conscious choice, deciding when to maintain composure and when to dive into emotional depths. This freedom to choose is the essence of liberation from automatic nonchalance. Looking back, the person may marvel at how subtle the transformation appeared on a day-to-day basis, yet how profound it becomes in hindsight. A once muted perspective can blossom into a newfound appreciation for simple pleasures, heartfelt connections, and even the lessons found in adversity. Life, in this recalibrated vision, is not merely something to be endured or observed. It is something to be participated in wholeheartedly. The spectre of nonchalance fades as the individual realizes that each moment is an opportunity for authentic engagement. Although the risk of hurt remains, so does the promise of love, achievement, and self-actualization. The scales tip in favor of caring, not because pain disappears, but because the value of truly living outweighs the fear of discomfort. In the end, the transition from nonchalance to emotional vitality is both intensely personal and universally human. Each individual travels a unique path, shaped by personal history, temperament, cultural context, and life experiences. Yet all these paths converge in a shared quest to reconcile the desire for safety with the longing for deeper meaning and connection. This reconciliation does not arise from eliminating risk, but from embracing it prudently, acknowledging that it is part and parcel of a fully realized life. If nonchalance is a shield, then the emerging self discovers that a shield can be lowered when it is safe to do so, and held high only when absolutely necessary. The freedom to move gracefully between these states is the hallmark of emotional maturity and resilience. Thus, overcoming nonchalance is not about erasing it as though it were a sin. Rather, it is about understanding how it arose, appreciating the protection it offered, and then deciding whether it continues to serve or has become a hindrance. It is the quiet journey from numbness to awareness, from guardedness to curiosity, and from isolation to meaningful involvement with others and the world. At its heart, it is a love story, the self-learning step by cautious step to love and be loved without the corrosive barriers of apathy. Though the path is winding and sometimes rocky, those who embark upon it often emerge with a renewed sense of vitality, gratitude, and self-knowledge. They awaken to the realization that life, in all its complexities and emotional intricacies, is better fully experienced than safely disregarded. Continuing on this path requires periodic introspection. Even after progress has been made, stresses or disappointments can reignite the old patterns of detachment. Periodic check-ins with oneself through mindfulness, journaling, or meaningful conversations can help maintain the course. Reflecting on what triggers the impulse to withdraw can illuminate areas of ongoing vulnerability or unresolved conflict. Yet each time awareness is brought to bear on these triggers, the individual strengthens their capacity to respond differently. Over time, the reflex to care in a healthy, balanced manner can become as ingrained as the old reflex to dismiss and detach. As life inevitably moves forward, bringing with it both joys and sorrows, the transformation continues. The individual finds that emotional presence can coexist with composure. They can confront losses, celebrate victories, and form deeper relationships without returning to the overarching stance of indifference. This does not mean perfection. There will always be moments of emotional overload, times when the desire to pull away reasserts itself. But these moments no longer define the person. They are simply part of the ongoing dance with life's unpredictability. In that dance, each step of renewed willingness to care proves the resilience of the human spirit, which can be bent but not broken, slowed down but not halted, veiled but not extinguished. Overcoming nonchalance, then, can be viewed as an open-ended journey rather than a destination. Rather than looking for a concluding moment where one says, "I have arrived," it might be more helpful to see the process as a continual unfolding of deeper authenticity. The layers of indifference peel away gradually, each new layer revealing opportunities for further growth. This viewpoint transforms occasional slips into learning experiences instead of failures, allowing for a gentler approach to personal evolution. When the time comes to reflect on the road traveled, one might recognize that becoming nonchalant was not a moral failing, but a coping strategy. It served a function, protected the self from overwhelming forces, or fulfilled social expectations at a difficult time. Understanding this nurtures a sense of compassion for the version of oneself that chose that path. It also fosters humility, as it highlights the plasticity of human beings and our remarkable capacity for adaptation, sometimes helpful, sometimes maladaptive. Ultimately, it invites gratitude for the fact that we are not locked into unchanging patterns, but instead possess the power to evolve in response to new insights, experiences, and aspirations. This shift from nonchalance to engaged living might mirror the metamorphosis of a winter landscape into spring. During the winter, the world seems quiet, monochrome, and seemingly barren, yet beneath the frozen surface, seeds lie in wait. As conditions grow favorable, the ground thaws and tender shoots reach for the light. It is a testament to the natural cycle of rest and renewal. Nonchalance is akin to winter in the emotional world. It quiets the clamor of intense feelings. Overcoming it is akin to spring, symbolizing renewed vitality, growth, and the blossoming of possibilities that were once kept hidden. In this sense, the individual comes to see themselves as part of a living, cyclical process, capable of regeneration as surely as the earth itself. If the question arises as to why any of this matters, the answer resides in the intrinsic desire for fulfillment that exists within most people. A life spent behind the walls of nonchalance can feel safe, yet unremarkable, lacking the profound connections and transformative experiences that come with embracing vulnerability. To risk caring is to risk hurt, but it is also to open the door to love, creativity, and wonder. The choice is deeply personal, and the path to actualizing that choice is winding and varied. Yet for those who take it, the rewards often outweigh the potential pain, leading to richer, more meaningful engagements with the world. Some might ask whether the capacity for nonchalance ever truly disappears. In truth, the trait can remain in a dormant form, ready to surface under extreme stress or in certain environments. Yet, as one matures in emotional awareness, that trait becomes more of an option than a default. The person can choose to temporarily detach if the situation demands calm analysis, while still retaining the ability to re-engage once the storm passes. This flexibility is ultimately healthier than total immersion in emotion or total disconnection. It respects the myriad shades of human experience and the reality that different moments call for different responses. In the grand tapestry of human development, nonchalance is just one thread among many. It interweaves with resilience, curiosity, fear, love, and countless other qualities that shape our internal landscapes. Exploring it can be a window into the deeper workings of the psyche, how we protect ourselves, how we navigate cultural and social expectations, and how we respond to the unpredictability of life. Whether a person has simply flirted with nonchalance in passing or worn it as a cloak for years, the process of understanding and transforming it offers insights into the broader question of what it means to be fully alive. By the time a person has truly wrestled with their own capacity for nonchalance, they may be left with a sense of awe at the complexity of human nature. The realization that what once seemed like an unchangeable personality trait can, in fact, be reshaped, nurtures a profound respect for the human ability to adapt. One might also feel gratitude for the journey itself, even the painful or difficult parts, recognizing that each step laid the foundation for the next. Reflecting on how far they have come, the individual may see that the quiet calm of nonchalance has been replaced by a richer serenity, one that arises not from avoidance, but from acceptance. This new serenity can hold both sorrow and joy, strength and tenderness in equal measure. In this vision of self, the heart that once closed itself off for protection now beats openly, trusting that it can withstand the vicissitudes of life. The person acknowledges that while old habits sometimes beckon, they also hold the power to choose otherwise. They can choose to show up, to share, to invest in relationships and goals with genuine fervor. This willingness to engage is not a naive disregard for life's harsh realities. It is an informed, courageous decision to embrace existence fully. Nonchalance might still make the occasional appearance, but it no longer defines the person's overall approach to life. Thus, the story of becoming nonchalant and then learning to overcome it is a tale of evolution. It reveals how we shield ourselves when the world feels too overwhelming, and how we can eventually set aside those shields when we realize their weight is too great a burden. It is a journey toward realizing that true peace is not found in perpetual disengagement, but in learning to navigate life's turbulence without losing our capacity to feel. And it is a celebration of the human spirit's capacity for renewal. An acknowledgement that, given the proper insights and support, we can step out of the shadows of indifference and into the sunlight of wholehearted living.